I was vegan for 2 years because it was largely environmental. I mean, obviously, as I said, I do love animals anyway, but that was largely for the environment, I guess, was my...
Very good with it. I mean, you did try to make me vegan, didn't you, for like a solid was it a month or two? Yeah, you put me on the diet. And it wasn't that hard, actually.
Do you think these barriers, or you could call them excuses, if communicated to the animal, if they could understand it, do you think they would think that is a justification for the exploitation and death which they have to suffer?
Well, I don't think really, inherently, there's a valid reason to kill anything. But...
Cool. So I'm asking people generally what their thoughts are on animals.
Just animals.
Yeah, what do you think of animals?
My thoughts are that I love animals.
Oh, yeah.
I love animals.
Love
That's
animals,
my
yeah.
thoughts. I think that's quite an obvious answer, but yes, I love animals, of course.
Well, I just think animals are so cool. You've got so many different diverse ones. It's just awesome. I loved learning about animals ever since I was little. So, like, it's just amazing. Who doesn't like animals?
And do you have any favourite animals?
Cat.
Cat? Yeah? That was very quick. Straight to cat.
I love cats.
Yeah, no, it's not as quick for me. I mean, I like a lot of sea life. I think that's really cool. Things like that. I like killer whales. I think they're awesome. They don't attack people. They mind their own business. I mean, the only time they have is when we put them in like captivity. So
Yeah,
they're pretty awesome.
I feel basic now, but yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And what's your thoughts on animal abuse or animal abusers?
I don't think anyone really should like animal abusers. It's like people who pick on kids, It's just like
Abuse is abuse, regardless. Abuse is abuse. Animal abuse is just as bad as all kinds of abuse, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah. I mean, other than that, I would say it's pretty solid. I wouldn't say it's exact same as all kinds, but I would say it's definitely still a massive issue.
Why abuse?
Yeah. Why do it? Yeah.
Do you think you could even maybe consider abuse of animals worse than abuse of humans in a way that they're more defenseless and they don't have the capacity to defend themselves?
I think it depends. Worse depends on a worse effect on the animal or the person or the intention of the person. I would say intention-wise, it might be worse. The intention of the person is worse, knowing that you're going for something more innocent, kind of. But I think effect-wise, obviously humans have a huge capacity for suffering just as much as animals, so I don't know if it's worse. It's kind of hard to define, I think.
Yeah, I don't necessarily
Both pretty bad.
think that. Some
Yeah.
people bring that up as a point.
Yeah. For that point, I'd say I think it's like humans are very like empathy and sort of like natural emotions like that. They're very directed towards other humans. So I think like in the act of harming someone or someone else, it's also harming yourself a bit more. Because like you understand a person, you understand what you're doing, less so than an animal. Like obviously it's going to hurt a cow if you stick a hot poker in its eyes or something like that.
It's easier for people
But
to,
it's easy,
to
yeah, to
mentally
relate.
distance themselves
Yeah,
from
exactly.
animals, I think, is the difference.
Can you think of any effect of that mental distance or cognitive dissonance?
Effect on the person?
Yeah, or in
general?
effect on society or the person or the being, yeah.
I mean, it's a fine line. If you think you can separate yourself from animals, there's a lot of things that you can say, oh, that person even is too different from me, and you can distance yourself from them and say, we're too different, there's no empathy there. And I think that's just a slippery slope, to be honest. If you can't empathise with something because it's different, that doesn't sound great. That doesn't bode well for the future.
Yeah. Can you think of any examples of, in history, where a group hasn't empathised with another group or looked at them as inferior?
I think most wars have come from that, have come from seeing another group as inferior or not as, maybe not having as much person or like soul as you and your people and the things that are like you. But yeah, I think most things come from that, to be honest.
Well, yeah, and it's like most wars as well stem from like religious points of views and that most teach us to put ourselves above animals.
Ourselves above whatever is not us, really.
Well, it depends what we're talking about here.
Depends how you feel about religion.
Yeah. But I was just going to say, to add on to that point, that it's like, when you can't, every war that's created from not understanding one another, we are people. We are people. I know it's going to be way harder to understand animals, and I agree with that. That does not mean we should put no effort in
Doesn't mean you
whatsoever.
shouldn't do it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it does not mean, like, it's awful.
Yeah.
Like some of the conditions animals are kept in, and even on a more personal level, I think it just irks me when people like bring in animals to their own home as well. Like they want to treat them like they're like something, but they don't. So you shouldn't.
Yeah, they have
you
an
shouldn't bother.
expectation.
You know, it's bad for the world outwardly and inwardly. It's just all bad. But yeah.
And do you think that if everyone else around you or society at large objectifies someone, do you think that justifies yourself objectifying them and using them?
I don't think it doesn't justify it. It doesn't justify it. It gives a bit of leeway, I think. It is more difficult to step out of something that is considered extremely regular than it is, if something's already controversial. It's more difficult to step out of it, but I certainly would not use the word justify. No, it does not justify it.
And some people are just plain like kind of dumb. Like, just as it is. Yeah, it's like they won't understand. You can try to explain things
There
to
are
them, like this
people with low
conversation.
empathy.
Yeah, like this conversation with us, they just don't have like a capacity to understand, or they don't want to. And like that's just either ignorance or just
Defensiveness,
defensive.
I
Yeah,
think.
one of the two, or just maybe not even be able to understand. Some people actually just can't comprehend like the damage you're
That
doing.
they're doing, yeah.
Like statistics or anything mean nothing to them. But I think with that's why I'm more forgiving to those sorts of people. So it's like it's not okay to be willingly ignorant, but I get that some people are without the just like they don't mean to be ignorant,
Yeah.
and they just can't like escape it. So
You
yeah,
don't know what you don't know, I guess.
you don't. Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. But I'd say that. So I think it makes it slightly more forgivable, but it doesn't make it right by any means. To answer the question, yeah.
Can I ask you, have you, either of you or both of you, gone through your own kind of journey with like breaking down that distance, as you put it before?
I was vegan for 2 years because it was largely environmental. I mean, obviously, as I said, I do love animals anyway, but that was largely for the environment, I guess, was my reasoning. The only reason I stopped being vegan is because I went to college, became a bit broke, and I think to be a healthy vegan, it takes a little bit of time and a bit more money than the average diet. But I still think it's better for everyone to try. It's still better to save something, make something better, improve everything a bit or as much as you can. Alleviates some of it for me. It's difficult to do something perfectly all the time, but I think the effort is worth it for anyone. I think even just something as simple as like that kid with the milk, if that was oat milk, you've already taken away some demand for a product that hurts something else living, and I think that's still a step in the right direction regardless.
I'd agree. With myself, I mean,
Do you mind coming this way just
yeah,
a little bit?
sorry.
In front, yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. Have I done anything to really? I wouldn't say so. I'd say I've thought about it a lot, but I haven't been very good with it. I mean, you did try to make me vegan, didn't you? For like a solid 2. Was it a month or 2? Yeah, you put me on the diet, and it wasn't that hard actually.
He's done a week vegan and all that kind of thing. And you're right, it wasn't hard. It was slightly more expensive though.
Yeah, it was.
It
but
was,
mhm.
but
maybe that's just the way we eat though. But like, it could be.
Yeah. And that's forgetting how many people don't have that issue with money, and that wouldn't be
Yeah,
a problem.
true.
Of being
So many
more
people-
expensive.
but that-
Especially in this area, there's a lot of people that wouldn't be a problem for them, the money.
It's the same like with fast fashion though, isn't it? People will use money as an excuse
Yeah,
and say, "Oh, I
some
don't have
people
this
can't
money. I don't have
afford
this
it,
money," and they'll just walk past like that cancer research shop without looking inside it for clothes.
And they'll go on Shein
Yeah,
instead.
to buy everything else.
Do you think money is a good excuse or convenience?
I don't think this is the right answer.
What? There's no wrong answer.
I don't think it's the right answer, but I think, unfortunately, the way society is going, more and more convenience is needed. People are working longer hours. People are paying more for other things. People do have less money to spend on their groceries. People do have less time to cook healthy meals. Not everyone. As I said, I know plenty of people that have all the time in the world to do that. But to be completely vegan or completely conscious I do think is becoming more difficult rather than easier. Apart from there is more options. If your difficulty isn't money or time, and your difficulty is you don't like it, or you don't like the flavour, or you don't think the food is good enough, I think we have so many options for that now. I don't think that's a good excuse anymore. There's so much good vegan food, you know, and easy to make as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, back on the money thing, I think it's depends where you're asking, who you're asking. It's very like individually dependent, that one. But it doesn't mean you can't try. It doesn't mean you can't try at all. And like you said, there will be people who just use it as an excuse, just because they can, and they know some other people can actually use it as an excuse. But I don't think that's right. I think if anything,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
way worse. I think that's just selfish.
Privileged middle class, upper class people use the fact that privileged upper class people use the fact that a lot of lower class, poorer people actually can't be perfect with, you know, like products that have like ethical issues. They use that excuse on their behalf, which is just, that's not their excuse, that's somebody else's excuse. It has nothing to do with them, which is something I could never understand. When I was vegan and I'd try and make people, don't want to be pushy, and I don't want to be those people that's like, oh, moral high ground. Like I said, I still eat some meat and dairy now. I try not to, but some. I just feel I would try and say to people, you know, oh, but even just like taking it down a tiny bit, you'll save however much water, you'll save X amount of like animals or whatever. They just kept like going with that one excuse, and I was like, but you have the money right now to get something else. You're fine right now. Like, what's your excuse right now?
So would you say that if we have the availability and the awareness of the issue, then we're morally obligated to take steps towards
Certainly.
like kind of eradicating that injustice?
Absolutely. I think the huge stress is on availability, though. I think that's, for me, that would be the main issue. I don't think it is the main issue for most people, though, to be honest. I don't think that's most people's reason for having a cheeseburger every single day. I don't think that's most people's reason, but that's what I think.
Can I just say this is like more of a I guess personal story, but I went vegan just before starting uni, and then I went through uni living very cheaply on mostly like whole foods, plant-based diet, and there's studies that show it's actually cheaper if you're consuming you know, like making things and buying ingredients. If you buy very processed stuff, it can be more expensive, but it has actually been shown that it can be cheaper on a plant-based diet. So although, you know, I don't think these barriers are like a binary thing, like it is. I do think there's nuance there, but it definitely can be done, and we do have the availability of plant-based food now.
Yeah, no, to add to that, I'd say it's very dependent on where you are, I'd say, in the world, because some things are just going to be way more easy to access than others. And say, like, it's going to be so much easier if you, say, around here, you've got a nice, like, vegetable market every now and then, you know, you get stuff like that come through. There'll be places where you won't see that. People, like, you know, won't, everywhere will just be superstores, everything like that. They just can't get away from it. And I understand you can put the blame onto them, and you should slightly for not seeking these places out. But then I've also got to think some people inherently as human beings do need to prioritise their own health before anyone else's. And like, not even their own health, that's the wrong word. Just prioritise their own lives before they can help everyone else. Not even well-being, because if you're eating meat,
there are certain
for, like,
people, I can
well-being.
imagine a single mother with 3 kids that's just finished her 9-hour shift isn't going to the market to cut up 8,000 tomatoes and take however long cooking all of that. Although I do absolutely agree, like, the majority of your diet being fresh fruit and vegetables is definitely cheaper than people buying either processed vegan food or meat. It's much cheaper than that. That could
keep a cow alive.
Exactly, yeah. It's that definitely will make your diet cheaper, but that can't be your whole diet, and especially if you're busy. If not everybody has the time to make themselves the full breakfast, the full healthy lunch, the full healthy dinner. People are out and about, and again, depending on where you are, that could make it harder or easier, you know, to keep it vegan, keep it sustainable. But I would agree that you can definitely have a huge chunk of your diet fresh fruit and veg, and it absolutely is cheaper.
Well, I mean, yeah, I walk into I don't know, let's just say Waitrose down there. How much is their chicken breast going to be versus like
a tenner.
a tenner versus an apple?
Get 8 onions for like £1.
But Yeah, I know, what you mean, but yeah, it is a lot of time and effort. And like you're saying, for people who've just like come back from work and like slaved away, and they feel themselves almost being treated like animals.
Yeah.
You can't really extend your empathy, and I understand that it can be cruel to people, and it makes them crueler.
Like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
I think it's an important you bring up as well. Like, I think society is regressing in a way where we're having less time to cook and buying healthy foods which are organic and things. Like, it seems to be getting worse and worse. Can I ask you a question? It's a bit of a tricky one, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here.
I love tricky ones.
But I think it's quite a good question. Do you think these barriers, or you could call them excuses, if communicated to the animal, if they could understand it, do you think they would think that is a justification for the exploitation and death which they have to suffer?
No, but it's difficult to square an entire species of people who seem to be collectively exploiting, killing, murdering, really, generally being cruel. It's very hard to separate that from individuals who aren't themselves purposely cruel and are just doing what they feel that they need to do. But again, I don't think that is the majority of people. I think if you confronted most people with the reality, with the animal, I don't think they'd want to give their excuses, really. I don't think an animal would understand that. I think they're... I don't know. I wonder if animals could have the same, more, less empathy as us, if they could understand. Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest.
Well, I don't think really inherently there's a valid reason to kill anything, but we do it. It's almost human nature, I find, in killing it. If you look about it, all we've done is fight and cause problems. I think the empathy that you're trying to extend towards animals.
Give me that. I think it's also technically not in human nature, if you want to go like that, to eat processed foods, to wear clothes, to use a train, like any of that. So I think that's that just shows that it's something that can be fixed. But it's an annoying one because it's something that has to be fixed on a supply and demand level, and it's gone so far it's hard to go backwards. But I think it still feels better to make small changes. You still save a lot of carbon, a lot of water, several animals. Better than nothing. A life is a life.
Can I just ask you on that? Yeah, so people will say it's like human nature, or it's it's the natural world. These things happen. Do you think that justifies it? Because you could say that with murder, with rape, lots of different things. It's historically happened, and it happens in the animal kingdom. But that doesn't justify it, does it?
I preface by saying it doesn't justify it. I think it's almost inseparable to people, is what I think. And I think, it's going to be a lot harder than just, like what you were saying, reducing, like taking away from just, supply and demand. I think it's going to be a lot harder than that, even on an individual level. I think it's some people, and most people they have a capacity to be violent, but I don't think that justifies it at all, if that's what the point you're towards the animals. I don't think it's a justification of sort. I think it's just explaining as to why there is a problem and how that problem's almost in itself going to be insurmountable. But it's definitely not an excuse.
Do you think it is insurmountable, or do you think that individually and as a society we can progress away from things which we recognise as wrong?
Well, we haven't learned anything from history, have we? So, I don't know. I would hope so, but I feel like in an ideal world, well, we don't live in an ideal world. It'd be a lot different.
Might seem slightly random, but I think we forget the meat and dairy industries, how much money they generate and how they're marketed to us. And it's not just like meat's not just there. Like our biggest restaurants, our fast food, things that are like marketed to us as being acceptable and being the best things are all from that industry. And I think something is, I can't think of something easy to compare it to, but we know there's several industries where like tens and tens of years of marketing is difficult to undo, but clearly it can be done. Like I said, there's lots of things that aren't in human nature that we are now doing that X amount of years ago people wouldn't have done. So I think it's possible. But I also think that people need to generally erase the idea of worldwide change from their mind. Like something doesn't have to be a massive change. You don't have to wipe an industry off the face of the planet to make a difference. You alone, just you one person, just trying to be a bit better already makes a difference. I think the reason a lot of people don't go vegan is because of the pressure to do it perfectly and to make a difference, when really you could just see it as, that's something I know is cruel. Right now, it's easy for me to not participate. It's perfectly accessible for me to not participate in that, to whatever extent that is for you as a person. And that should be good enough for a person. Live with your own morals rather than like it having to be a societal change, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Can I ask you, unless you had another point on that?
Oh, no.
What do you think would be, what's needed to empower individuals to make personal change which they consider virtuous?
I have an answer, but it's a weird one.
You go first.
It's a weird one, but it feels good to know in general that what you do aligns with your morals and that you aren't a hypocrite. It just feels good knowing that you've not done that damage that you didn't want to do. That alone is just, I feel, an incentive to try.
Yeah, I think it's a good motivator, yeah.
I think when you refer to like virtues and pushing them and like how to encourage people to like live by their virtues, I think most people you talk to won't want animals to suffer, will they? And most people will say, oh yes, I don't want this, but then they'll go do completely something else, and they won't, obviously live up to these virtues that they're either preaching or saying they agree with. But I feel like deep down, there's a difference between virtues and what is moral. I think there's a difference between what is virtuous and what is moral, and I think people acting morally is okay, it's acceptable. If people want to act virtuously, then I applaud them, and it takes a lot more effort, I feel. And I don't really have an answer of how to push people into being virtuous, because I feel like you've got way too many people's different like virtues themselves, and it's just, I feel like it's way too subjective to push onto one person. So when you've got like big sort of like groups like the Catholic Church, let's say, and they're pushing their virtues onto people, and they can do that through the Bible, which has been around for like thousands of years. We don't really have something we can make accessible to the public throughout thousands of years right now, just to make it like, just to try and push our virtues onto them. So I don't really have an answer to that question now of how to make somebody live up to their virtues.
I've got another basic one. It sounds silly, but if you take up cooking as a hobby, you will quickly realise that vegan food is a lot better than you think. It's not gross. It's not like you can live without meat. It's not some like amazing thing unless you're a really bad cook.
Yeah,
but if you take up cooking and you learn to cook properly, you'll enjoy it much quicker than you think, and you'll probably enjoy cooking too.
When I went vegan that was the first time, I actually kind of got creative with the food I was cooking, and actually realised how many amazing foods there are. How many
how much you can do with vegetables.
Yeah, exactly.
That is true.
So my answer to the question that I posed would be, I think education and like resources is the biggest thing. So I think providing ourselves and like going out and seeking the education and be it books, documentaries, whatever, and finding out the information and sharing that. And it's not about imposing your morals or your virtues onto other people, but it's about educating them on what happens and letting them decide themselves. And
it seems that it's quite a agreed upon moral not to kill animals already. That seems like that is like a general agreed upon thing, and that people don't realise what they're doing with their money when they're buying something. I think that's a disconnect. I don't think anybody knowingly would want to kill animals.
Yeah.
They're able to separate it in their head from them going to the shop and buying their dinner.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone I talk to says they're an animal lover, and I think that everyone would consider it virtuous to minimize the harm they're doing to everyone, not just animals but humans as well. But then they have that disconnect where they consume
they think they're not doing
a
harm.
massive amount of meat, dairy and eggs on a daily basis, and they don't see that harm there.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm out here trying to bridge that gap with people and help people realize that isn't just a product, that's a living being which got exploited and got killed unnecessarily. Do you think there's any, you say you were vegan for a period, and I don't know about yourself, but like, would you consider transitioning away from animal products and going towards a plant-based diet?
Definitely. Already did it. I would say I'm definitely more plant-based now than certainly animal-based foods. But you know, if I get a good job, if I have nice money and more, you know, nice amount of money and more time to cook, definitely, I think easily I could do it again, for sure.
When you ask a question like that, again, I feel like it's going to be very subjective. It's very dependent on the person, and I would like to, but I don't really look after my body much as is. Yeah, and that's definitely on me, and I only have myself to blame for that. But like I'm saying, when we try to get people to believe a certain way or educate them on certain things, you really have to teach someone to care about themselves as well before they can learn about the planet.
Yeah, like they say
when half of everyone else has done it and we're already making vegan fast food.
Yeah, they say like, you know, if you're a lifesaver, you know, like a lifeguard or whatever, if someone's drowning, you shouldn't grab them because they might bring you down. You need to like bring them up and kind of show them, because you need to look after yourself first. Yeah. I absolutely agree, and I think our own health is so important. But the reason I'm out here talking to people isn't for health reasons or environmental reasons, so animal rights reasons, and because every time we consume an animal product, their rights are taken away and they're objectified and commodified. So I think, although health and environment is a great motivator, the rights of the animal, I think, is the most powerful one. And when we remind ourselves of the experience and, you know, subjective experience of that animal, then, you know, that's personally what made me go vegan, and is what I think will continue being a motivator throughout my life. Because health, although I think that's a great one and health is important, I don't really care as much about my own body as another innocent animals.
Life, yeah. For me, the environment was a huge one, just because statistically, the statistical impact on the planet. Of course, animals are an issue as well. But I watched documentaries about the environmental impact, and it was extremely shocking. I
think it's all tied in together.
It is, for sure.
And like human rights as well is involved.
I think, of course, people working in abattoirs, I don't think they're very, very happy doing it. I think it'd be good. It's not easy or possible, but if people could go to like farms and see the animals. Because I used to like live by this farm with these baby pigs, and that was just about the time I went vegan, because they're just so sweet and smart, and it makes it feel more like you couldn't imagine eating your dog, you know? I think it would give people more that feeling if they could physically see it. Again, even a documentary or something, people will watch something on TV, put something else on the next minute, and it's gone. Yeah. It's gone. Like, you know, put Family Guy on straight afterwards, you're not thinking about it anymore, and you'll eat your cheeseburger.
Yeah,
I think they need to really see it.
Brain
it is not exactly, the human superior brain can be that easily distracted, but yeah.
And
sorry, we need to go in a second.
Yeah, well, if you need to go at any moment,
a little bit. Check your phone, Phil. What's the time?
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to miss a bus or anything.
We're okay? Okay, we're fine.
Another half hour.
All right, I like these. I feel like more people should do this.
It's nice.
It is nice. It is nice. I feel like it gets a really bad reputation for being pushy.
Yeah, that's the thing.
For sure.
I think it's about education and awareness, because and I'm never going to be able to, you know, change someone's, thought system in a 10-minute conversation. But I can kind of nudge them and remind them of things that are happening in the world and of their own values, and try, like you said before, it's about aligning our values with our actions. And when we're living in alignment, everyone's better off, I think.
Yeah, it's empowering for people as well, I feel. Like, which shouldn't be an incentive that you need to get someone to not be cruel, but, you know, for people that need a better incentive, it'll make you feel better about yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I think, like, preferably compassion and empathy is where the
change
should come from.
Yeah.
But if it is selfishness, then that's also
it's
great.
Still saving a life,
Whatever makes that change, whatever reduces the harm and stops things from being exploited, I'm all for it.
I agree.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified when my next outreach video gets released. If you want to watch another conversation, here are a couple of options. And if you want to support my activism, there's a link in my profile to a page where you can buy me a coffee. Thanks. Amber.